Do you need a stick burner to cook some really amazing barbecue? Hey, what's up barbecue lovers? Arnie Tex here, and today we're bringing you a little discussion about stick burners. Lately, the stick burners have been all the rage for the last few years. It seems like all these new builders are popping up all over the place. I get questions about stick burners all the time, so I thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of put a little video out and answer a couple of little pros and cons and questions that I get asked on a regular basis, and hope to share with you what makes a stick burner work, what makes it tick, and how can you get a really good one. So the big question is, do you need a stick burner to cook some really amazing barbecue? I don't know the answer to that because I'm not you. Only you can answer that question, but I hope that in today's video I can share a few things about stick burners and how they work that will help you make a good buying decision. All right, so let's talk about some of the pros first. True barbecue is cooked with real wood and real smoke historically. And with a stick burner, you're gonna get some really nice, delicious, smoky barbecue. I call it a kiss of smoke. Now, the heat comes in through the firebox and flows in and around the meat and adds that nice little kiss of smoke. Depending on which wood you use will also determine a little bit of your flavor profile. The wood is in fact part of your seasoning, part of your flavor profile. The wood burned in the firebox creates smoke and heat, comes through the stick burner, comes through the cook chamber, cooks the meat, and then exit out the exhaust. Hopefully you've got some thin blue pretty smoke blowing out the exhaust. Another really big pro to stick burners is that you're burning true wood. There's no additives, no fillers, no starch, no binders. It's just pure wood. So the flavor you get on your meat is again based on what type of wood you use, but it's just pure, delicious, smoky goodness. Another really big pro that's a big plus in my book is that with a stick burner, you have an air inlet at the firebox and an exhaust and an air outlet at the exhaust. Depending on how you control those, you can be running at 450, 500 degrees sometimes, or you can run at 225. And the beauty of a stick burner is that you can ramp it up fast or bring it down quick if you need to. Very few cookers can go up or down in the amount of time that a stick burner can. And it does an excellent job without smoldering or ruining your meat. All right, now how does a stick burner work? Let me just kind of give you some real quick basics about how it works. Basically, this is a firebox. Inside the firebox, you're going to put some logs. You generally start with a base fire of coals. Some people like to just start with the wood and burn it all the way down, but it's really easier to start with a little bit of coals, either briquettes or lump charcoal. You're gonna throw intermittently one of these logs, depending on the size of your cooker, into the firebox. Now, think about the sticks. These are logs, but we call them sticks. The size of the stick determines the amount of heat that goes into your cooking chamber. The bigger the log, the more air you get going through there, the hotter you're gonna run inside your cook chamber. Now, the size of the cooker, the firebox, the chamber, and the exhaust will also determine the size of the log that runs optimally inside that cooker. I can tell you right now, my cooker likes them a little bit shorter than that, about the right diameter, but a little bit shorter to maintain my 275, 300 temperature that I like to cook at. And I'll have to put another log in there about every 25 minutes. Definitely by the 30-minute mark, I'm needing a log. Now, a lot of your other bigger stick burners that are 5, 6 feet in length, this is a 48-inch, 4 feet, they'll burn these big logs. They'll have a bigger firebox, they'll have a bigger exhaust stack, and they will burn these big old logs and maintain nice, steady temperatures. Some fireboxes are round, some are square. I do prefer the square type, but the round ones do work just as well. Now, one of the things you don't want in a firebox is a lid on top. This one has it. That's the way it came. It is okay. I get the idea. I get the design. These are designed to maybe grill something on here when you're not smoking big meats in there, so you don't interfere with that. But the problem with these types of lids and barbecue fireboxes that have lids on top, the problem with those is that they always leak. Always, no matter what you do, once you get enough heat in there, and this has some extra welded reinforcement in there, it still warps with enough heat in there sometimes. Just enough to let out a little bit of smoke and heat. So there, you lose a little bit of efficiency. It does work, just not as well as if it was completely sealed on top. Another thing you want on the firebox, this box here opens all the way up to the top. You want the opening of the door to be below the entrance to the cook chamber, from the firebox to the cook chamber. All right, now in this particular stick burner, It has 4 racks, 2 on each side behind each door. These are the slide out type, so you can slide these out and work on your meat. The pro to that is that it's easy to work on stuff. You don't get a lot of heat in your face, but if you don't have a table welded here or attached in one way or another, you get all the grease drippings on your shoes, might get on your clothes and your pants, or on your pretty patio. So you definitely want to get a barbecue smoker that has some kind of a table here that is attached from end to end to keep all the grease either there where you can wipe it off, or ideally, preferably, you want a drip rail. Some good builders will weld just basically a little flat bar that goes across the edge of the lid here, and when it closes, that drips inside the smoker, and that keeps all the grease in there while it's cooking. And you don't get all this drain here. You see there's some little white lines here where the moisture runs down and it drips all over the floor too. So another source of drip is when you're cooking, even with the doors closed, you're gonna get some water, moisture that drips around the outside here, and it goes down into your pretty patio, and might also get on your shoes as well. So you wanna get, again, that table that seals the end to end wherever your doors are, so you don't get stuff when you pull the racks out, drips all over you or your patio, and it also doesn't drip down on the floor when the lids are closed and you have maybe a water pan in there and a lot of moisture. You also want to get some really good thermometers. I like these tilt-throughs. I always keep them loose, so when I'm driving down the road I can remove them, because when you're going down the road these lids bounce a lot and it will ruin your very nice, fancy, and expensive thermometer. All right, so you put the fire in here, you put logs in there intermittently, the heat comes up through the firebox into the chamber, goes all the way across and around the meat, the smoke permeates the meat and adds that nice, delicious smoky taste, and then it exits out the exhaust pipe here. Now, this one has a 5-inch square exhaust pipe. Ideally, you want a round pipe. The round pipes are much more efficient. They work better. A square pipe basically equates to the equivalent of a 4-inch round pipe. On square exhaust pipes, the corners are basically dead. You lose about a 1/4 inch on each corner of airflow, so it's not as efficient as a round pipe. So again, the 5-inch pipe basically is a 4-inch round pipe. So ask your builder to put you a round pipe, preferably on a stick burner this size or bigger. You need a minimum of 6 inches. Now this one is also a little too short. There is a certain ratio between the size of the firebox, the cook chamber, and the exhaust. If you look up the Feldman's Pick calculator and input the ratio, determine what size cooking chamber you want, and then from there it'll tell you the ideal size of the firebox and the ideal size and length of your stack as well, your exhaust. I highly recommend you look that up if you are in the market for a stick burner, so that when you do go try to buy a stick burner, either from an individual or if you're going to have one built by a builder, you'll already have a little bit of knowledge about how to talk about what exactly you want, and you'll be able to tell the builder exactly how to build it the way that you want it built. I know I'm pissing off a lot of people, because not everybody's going to agree with me about the stack or the Feldman calculator or maybe some of the things I'm saying, but I'm here to tell you I've been cooking for over 20 some years. I've had many, many stick burners in every kind of barbecue pit you can imagine. And what I'm sharing with you is basically based on my experience and my observations, having had so many cookers and cooking for so many years, both in the backyard and in competition. Another thing you want to make sure of is that these doors seal really well. Now this particular cooker, I gotta say, they did a fantastic job. These lids here seal very, very, very well. I do get a little bit of humidity escaping through there. They're not sealed like, with a gasket, but they are sealed very well. So you want to make sure you look for doors and lids that are sealed really nice. Check out all 4 corners, make sure they close nice and tight. Some of them that I've seen, the doors kind of warp at the corners, and that comes from the heat when they cut the doors with a cutting torch or whatever they use. So you definitely want your doors to seal really well. Sealing of the firebox, the lower entrance of the air in the firebox below the height of the cook chamber, the right size and length of the exhaust will increase the efficiency of your cooker, burn less fuel, and cook some amazing barbecue. All right, now another thing that I want to point out, and I'll show you in a little clip, the grates on this pit are probably the worst you can get. What you want is a 3/4 inch flat grate, and what that means, it's nice and smooth. 3/4 is the size of the little diamonds, but 3/4 smooth is what you want. And what I always do, and I would recommend you tell your builder to get a flat wheel, on a grinder and just smooth it all out all the way around, because sometimes they have little burrs either from the manufacturing process when they make the grates, or when the welder's building the pit, welding different things around there, you get these little specks of slag, it's called, or welding splatter, and that will also rip up your foil. These grates and little burrs will destroy your foil. If you're going to be moving it around, rotating meat, you'll lose all your moisture and all of that delicious goodness that goes with your barbecue. So make sure they're smooth. Make sure they smooth them out with a little flap wheel. All right, now here's probably a point of contention also with some folks: tuning plates. Should you or should you not have tuning plates in your cooker? I'm here to tell you right now, go look at some of the biggest barbecue houses that cook hundreds of briskets every week on 1,000-gallon smokers. They don't have tuning plates. If your pit is built right, if it's tuned right with the firebox, the cook chamber, and the exhaust, you really don't need tuning plates. Now, I am talking about a single or double rack type of setup like the one I have here. Tuning plates do have their place. They do work in certain circumstances where you have a really big smoker that has many, many racks. The tuning plates are basically these little plates that they put in on the bottom, and the inlet from the firebox goes, the heat goes under the tuning plates, and they're spaced out a certain amount of width where the heat comes up through there. So the further apart they are, the more heat you get. So generally they're a little tighter at the beginning and a little wider apart at the end. So you get nice even heat that comes up between the plates, and it cooks all your meat. It goes up, heat rises, then it goes across the cook chamber and down and out the exhaust. Generally they work really well in those types of setups, but I'm going to tell you they're really kind of hard to get tuned right. It's kind of hard to get them just right. This cooker came with 4 tuning plates and racks and stuff down there to try to get it to work right. I tried and tried and tried. I could not get them tuning plates to run right, worth the crap on this particular cooker. It doesn't need them. I've had much bigger cookers. I've built some myself. You don't really need them in something this small. If it's built right, you don't need tuning plates. However, again, like I said, they do have their place, and there are people that use them and they work great. Don't want to argue with nobody. If it works for you, great. But I'm just here to tell you that they're not normally necessary if the pit is built correctly. Now, one other thing that I'd like to point out on the exhaust, this has what I call a flat top. Flat top basically means it's flat and it goes open. It opens this way or that way to allow the heat to escape. Some exhausts have what I call a butterfly. You know, basically it's inside the pipe, and it's basically a butterfly that opens and closes, and it allows the heat to go that way depending on how you position it. That is a much better design. It flows very nice and smooth. What happens with a flat top, the heat's trying to escape and it's bouncing off the top, off that flat top, and then it's finding its way out. It does work, especially if the pipe's big enough. It will work. I mean, this one works, but not as good as a butterfly valve. I've had butterfly valves that I've built, and I am going to change this entire stack out to a round one, just an FYI, because it does work better. It does work more efficiently. Now, I'm a competition cook, and I'm here to tell you when you're up against the wall and the clock is ticking and it's crunch time, sometimes that little extra efficiency makes a big difference. And it could ruin your party too if you're in a situation where you can't control that heat quickly and efficiently. All right, another thing I'd like to point out, you know, you want to have a nice drain. I've got some vice grips on mine because the lever broke, but you want to have the drain. These stick burners all need some kind of drain. While you're cooking, you get all kinds of grease, little chunks of meat that fall in there and stay on the bottom. So when you try to drain it all out, a lot of builders put little bitty drains because it's cheaper. I mean, and of course they're in business to make a profit, nothing wrong with that. But if you're gonna have one built, make sure you ask for a nice big valve. This one looks like it's about 1.25 inches. About 1.5 inches or a 2-inch pipe will work really good on a pit this size or any size bigger than this. Works really, really great. Definitely, because I'm here to tell you just from experience, those little ones get clogged up, and there you are sticking your hand down there trying to poke that grease through, trying to get it out of there. Get a nice big drain, and then all you got to do is put the water hose in there. Everything goes right out the bottom. All right, finally, I'm going to say one more thing here, that this might be a point that some people agree or don't agree with, but I'm just here to tell you from my own personal experiences, 24 by 48 is about as small as you can get for a true stick burner. And when I say stick burner, I mean you're burning logs. You are burning a log, it's on fire, and it's and the right amount of airflow. You are controlling the temperature by the log, not by a pile of charcoal and a couple of wood chunks, which works fine too. But at the end of the day, that is not a stick burner, that is an indirect cooker. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have indirect cookers. My Hasty Bake is an amazing indirect cooker. I've won cook-offs with that thing, but it's not a stick burner. A stick burner burns real sticks. An indirect cooked with charcoal and wood chunks or small logs. The bottom line is, if you put logs into a smaller one, it's going to be too much heat, and you're not going to be able to control your temperature. And if you get the logs too small, you know, like little sticks like this, where you're going to have to stand there at the firebox and put a new one in about every 10 minutes, you know. And if you're cooking briskets, you know, for 10 or 12 hours, you ain't even going to have time to go to the restroom, man. You're going to have to stand there and keep adding these little sticks. So a true stick burner, the smallest size that I would recommend is a 24 by 48. And quite honestly, I prefer a 60-inch. They just work better. You can run a little bit bigger log. Your intermittent adding of the logs will be less frequent. Instead of every 20 minutes, it can be every 30 to 45 minutes. So you have a little bit of time to monitor and relax. So just to recap, folks, you want to get a firebox and an exhaust stack that matches the size of your cooker. You want to be able to get the right size logs for the size of your stick burner to maintain nice even temperatures. You want a round exhaust stack, preferably over a square one with a butterfly valve preferably. You want nice smooth racks, and you want a firebox that's sealed on the top, and that the back door does not open all the way to the top. You'll see some video clips in there where I demonstrate and illustrate exactly what I'm talking about. All right, one other thing I'd like to point out is that a stick burner is not a set it and forget it cooker. A stick burner is a commitment of time to cook big meats like briskets or pork butts that are generally anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. You must be committed to monitoring your temperatures, fiddling with your air controls, trying to maintain that nice even temperature. Whereas with a lot of other cookers like my Hasty Bake, I mean, I can put the right amount of charcoal in there and go to town. I can be gone for 3 or 4 hours. It'll sit there at the exact temperature. Pellet grills do the same thing. Upright boxes will run for 8, 10 hours. Drums, I own a drum. That drum, once I fill it up and set the airflow, it'll cruise at 300 for 10 or 12 hours. No problem. I can sleep overnight and just let it rock. But a stick burner is a whole different animal. You need to be standing close by. You need to monitor your temperatures. You need to continue to add your logs every 20 to 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how efficient your cooker is, depending on how much meat there is in there. Another thing about stick burners is they tend to be fickle sometimes. They are fickle sometimes, depending on how the wind's blowing, if it's super windy, or if it's blowing in the wrong direction. Sometimes it's hard to get them to draft up through the stack. But in most cases, if it's designed efficiently and if the stack's the right length, you're not going to have a lot of problems. So that is another big and important thing to be considering. That if you're going to have a stick burner and you're going to use it, you're going to be there all day adding logs if you're cooking big meats. You know, racks of ribs, a couple chickens, you know, 3-4 hours, no big deal. But for big meats, it's an all-day commitment. Just another little FYI for y'all folks. All right, another thing is between the inlet of the air, the size of the log, the right stack, the goal is to achieve thin blue smoke or almost totally translucent smoke coming out of that exhaust where you can't hardly see any smoke at all. You don't see it, but it's there, and it will add the delicious smoky flavor to your meat. You don't want that billowing white smoke or that billowing black smoke. We call both of those dirty smoke, and all that does is ruin your meat. You'll be burping up smoke for 2 or 3 days if you get too much of that. It will ruin your meat, and it'll be a real buzzkill for your party. All right, folks, well, I hope that what I shared with you today and the points that I pointed out will help you make a good buying decision. If you have any questions or comments, or if you own a stick burner and it runs wonderfully, I mean, put it in the comments below and let me know how you like it. Tell us what brand you have and how efficient it is. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can. If you like this video and if it was helpful to you, make sure you like, comment, and share. Tell your buddies about it if they're in the market for a stick burner. Keep the smoke light and make it work. Boom!